literally started with one crate, hardly any investment, and that's how we got into it. But the whole sort of vinyl bug, it's a very very fun thing to collect. It's the best way to listen to music. It's a fantastic thing to be a part of, and it's great to see people buying music again. It's a growing market, which is really nice to see. There's a little bit of a lag still in terms of the actual demand or people from South Africa buying music, but it's still growing. The interest is growing, and it's growing across the spectrum of different groups in South Africa. I think one of the most interesting ones actually recently has to be like TKZ. So TKZ, I mean, I freaking love them. So they released Halloween, and Halloween was an album from, I think it was 1998 or 1997, but it never came out on vinyl. Vinyl was gone, it didn't exist. So for the first time, Sony actually brought this album out on vinyl last year, and there's huge demand for this record, not just from South Africans or tourists as well. It's one of our biggest kind of sellers actually of last year is TKZ Halloween. Jazz was a form of protest music, which a lot of people don't actually realize, and we had some incredible jazz artists throughout the 70s and 80s who sadly had to go and live in exile. You couldn't be a jazz musician, you couldn't perform in all these venues, you couldn't do that type of music without some sort of influence from government slowing you down or censorship or something like that. So it suddenly became a very important kind of piece of music, and because of this historical significance, it's very sought after sort of worldwide. As a result, South African jazz is one of the most collectible genres of music there is. The reason why records are so expensive, we were talking about records at 500 Rand for local artists. I mean, that is a lot of money, but the problem with it not being a pressing plant in South Africa is that everything gets pressed overseas or gets manufactured overseas, in the EU most likely. Most records actually get made in the Czech Republic. They then get passed and shipped over to England. They then get shipped down to us. And by the time you've factored in all of those different shipping points, sadly, it adds on so much money onto the actual cost price. So for us down in South Africa, sadly, it's one of the most expensive territories to be a vinyl collector. And the reason for that is if you get a globe or a world map and you have a look at it, we're literally, I think, the furthest away country of any pressing plant on earth. So every record that comes here, even though it's a South African record, be it a Letta Mbulu, be it a Matthew Mole, be it a Naz or anyone like that, it's actually, even though it's a South African record, it was pressed overseas and then brought back here.